This Goblin Rabble will now perform his free melee action against this Basilean crossbowman. Because Goblin Rabble aren't very good, they only bring a single d8 to their fight. The Goblin player wants to spend a power dice to give them an extra d8, doubling the effect. This Goblin Rabble is not the best fighter, so only brings one d8 when he attacks. Because he charged, he would normally gain an extra d8, but because his charge went across an obstacle or through difficult terrain, he loses that bonus. Therefore, the Goblin player wants to spend one power to give him an extra d8. Now, Goblin Rabble fight on a 5+, so we'll see what he gets. Remember, in this situation, 8s explode. So he's done very well, this Goblin. He's got a 7, which is a hit, and an 8, which is another hit. And therefore, I roll another d8, which is not a success. The Basilean crossbowman now needs to make an armour save against these two successes. His armour is a 6+, but because he's defending an obstacle, it actually is improved by 1, so he goes up to 5+. For each success I roll, it will negate one of those hits. That means that this negates this dice, leaving 1 wound to go through to the Basilean crossbowman. Now, Basilean crossbowmen only have 1 wound, and therefore this Basilean crossbowman, because he is a grunt, is removed from the game. The Goblin Rabble has done very well indeed. If instead the model that had taken damage had more wounds, he would have just removed 1 wound, and if he'd been of any other type other than a grunt, such as a spellcaster, support or command or warrior model, he would not necessarily have been killed outright. After successfully dispatching that Basilean crossbowman, the Rabble can now make a follow-up move of up to 3 inches. And I'm going to move this model to here. The movement must be within the Goblin's original front arc. Now it is the Basilean player's turn to activate, and he will activate the Veteran Sergeant, who will try to get rid of this pesky Rabble. He performs a run into combat with the Goblin. That therefore becomes a charge and will give him a bonus in combat. The Veteran Sergeant has a melee stat of 3d8, and because he is charging, he gains an extra 1. Notice he gains this 1 because he has not run over an obstacle or difficult ground. The Veteran Sergeant has a melee stat of 5+. Unfortunately, that is very poor rolling on the Basilean Sergeant. I'm surprised he's still a veteran, because that is terrible. The Goblin obviously doesn't need to take any damage, so therefore doesn't need to make an armour save. Now, although this Goblin has already been activated, he may still retaliate, because he is not fatigued. If you have not been activated, you can retaliate for free, and that takes up your activation. If you have already been activated, you can still retaliate, but then you are marked as fatigued, so that will have an impact on him in the next round. To retaliate, the Goblin Rabble would be able to move by turning on its axis if necessary, and then making a normal fight action against the model in contact. So in this case, a single d8, for which he fails to hit, and therefore the Veteran Sergeant also does not need to make an armour save. That will mean now that this Goblin is not only activated but also fatigued, and will only be able to perform 1 action next round. The Goblin player has had enough of this now and wishes to get rid of these last Basileans. The Troll therefore activates and can either move 6 inches, but that will not get it into combat, or instead I can choose to run and fight this Basilean crossbowman. I do, however, have to take the straight line again, and that means that I will not be able to go around the obstacle. A troll is a powerful melee model and therefore gets 5 d8s in melee. I do not get the bonus one for charging as the Basilean crossbowman is protected by an obstacle. I now roll my dice on the melee stat of 5+ for the troll. Only 2 are successes. The Basilean crossbowman now rolls 2 dice to try and save those against his armour stat of 6+. However, the troll has crushing strength 2, which would take that armour from 6+ to 8+. However, I gain an extra point of armour for defending an obstacle, so that takes me to 7+. Still quite a tall order to survive twice. The crossbowman has survived 1, but still takes a 2nd wound, and therefore, because he's a grunt and only has 1 wound, he is killed. The troll can make a 3-inch follow-up move into its front arc, but must stop an inch away from another model. We're going to have another look at melee now and see what happens when 2 non-grunt models are fighting. In this case, we have a troll versus the veteran sergeant. The troll is going to fight the veteran sergeant, and we will assume he's charged into combat, so therefore we'll be rolling 6d8. His normal 5d8 plus an extra one for having charged. He will hit on a 5+. He rolls well for a total of 3 successes. The Basilean veteran sergeant though has the parry keyword, which allows him to force the opponent to re-roll a single success in combat. So the troll will re-roll this dice. It actually doesn't help, and in fact works worse than the Basilean would have wanted to, as there is now an 8 and the troll rolls another success. The net effect is that there is still 3 successes. The veteran sergeant now has to roll 1 dice for each hit against his armour of 5+. However, the troll has crushing strength 2 and therefore his armour goes from 5 to 7. The Basilean veteran sergeant only rolled a single success, which means that 2 hits breach the armour of the sergeant. The sergeant has 3 wounds and therefore takes 2 wounds of damage, leaving him on a single wound left before he is removed as a casualty. Because the veteran sergeant was not killed, the pound keyword now comes into force. The troll has pound as he charges forwards. He can do, if he scores 3 or more hits and the target is not killed, as in this case, the target is knocked down. Being knocked down is very bad for a model, as it means that you first have to stand up, of course, to do anything else, which costs you a short action, but also, whilst on the ground, any attacks against you will receive benefits. Furthermore, the veteran sergeant can now not retaliate against the troll. If he had still been standing up, although he had taken damage, he would be able to perform a retaliate attack, as long as he was not previously activated or fatigued. In the next activation, the Basilean crossbowman decides to try and save the veteran sergeant by killing the troll. Whilst this is quite a tall order, he's going to attempt it anyway. He normally rolls 2d8, but because it is a clear shot, because the veteran sergeant does not block line of sight, he gains an extra dice. And also, for the cost of 1 power, the Basilean player will add an extra 1d8. The crossbowman needs to roll against his range stat of 5+. Only a single success was rolled, but it is an 8, so we'll re-roll another dice, which is also a miss. The troll now rolls against his armour of 4+ on a single dice. The troll fails to save the hit and takes a wound. This is important as trolls have the special ability Regenerate, which means that at the start of its next activation it will be able to roll 1 dice for each wound it has, and on a 6+ will regenerate that wound and remove it from the model. Let's skip ahead now and see what the regenerate roll would have been. Did not achieve a 6+, so the wound remains on the troll. Let's return to our example of the troll fighting the Basilean veteran sergeant. The veteran sergeant was on 1 wound but was knocked down by the pound ability of the troll. If in the next round the troll was to activate before the veteran sergeant had an opportunity to stand up, it would be able to fight again against the veteran sergeant and very likely kill him. That's because all attacks on knockdown models count as being attacks from the rear. That means that the crushing strength of a model is increased by 1. So in this case, the troll goes from crushing strength 2 to crushing strength 3, making it very difficult for the veteran sergeant to save any hits that the troll were able to land. Also, grunts are normally killed outright, but all other models have an opportunity of staying alive after taking their last wound. However, if a model is knocked down when that last wound is caused, no matter what type of model it is, it will be removed as a casualty when it loses its last wound. Let's talk about that a bit more and see what it means if the veteran sergeant had had an opportunity to stand up before the troll did cause the final wound on the veteran sergeant. Let's assume now that the troll had been able to make 3 hits on the white dice against the veteran sergeant. The veteran sergeant rolled 3 dice in defence and would normally save against his armour of 5+, but with the crushing strength 2 of the troll, that means that he needs a 7+. So he only saved 1 of those wounds. As he was on his last wound, that means that actually the veteran sergeant is now at -1 wounds. Now, because he is not a grunt, he's not necessarily dead at this point. He must now make a nerve test. This test is modified by the nerve difference. For instance, here, this model had 1 wound left and took 2 wounds, and therefore is a -1 nerve modifier. The nerve for a veteran sergeant is normally 4+, which means I now have to make a roll for him on a 5+ to pass. He does not pass and therefore is removed as a casualty. If I had passed this nerve test, then the veteran sergeant would not be killed, but would instead survive on 1 wound, but would be fatigued and knocked down. Obviously, now that he is knocked down again, he is vulnerable as we talked before.